Marvin Stevens Arrington Sr. made an unforgettable mark on the city of Atlanta. He was elected to the Atlanta Board of Aldermen in 1969. The name of that legislative body was changed to the Atlanta City Council in 1974. Arrington served as council president for 17 years. Among many other important causes, Arrington fought diligently to address issues of discrimination and led the charge to require the recording of all standing committee meetings and city council meetings. He also courageously appointed a woman to chair the Finance Committee. After stepping down from the council, his service to the city continued. In 2002, Governor Roy Barnes appointed Arrington to become Fulton County Superior Court Judge, where he served for 10 years before retiring. Arrington's dedication and commitment to serve would not go unnoticed. In 2019, the Atlanta City Council voted unanimously to rename the council chamber in his honor. I am Atlanta City Council President Felicia Moore. The legacy lives.
Everybody, we are going to get started in 1 minute. All right. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Matt Westmoreland. I chair the Community Development and Human Services Committee, which is hosting this work session on the proposed creation of a Atlanta BeltLine Special Services District. I am joined by my colleagues, Council President Felicia Moore, Council members Overstreet, Dickens, Smith, Jennifer Ide, Howard Shook, and Joyce Shepard. Others will likely join us as the afternoon progresses. Ms. Polendini, will you read the remote meeting statement, please?
Yes, Mr. Chair. This work session on legislation to establish the BeltLine Special Services District is being hosted by the Community Development Human Services Committee and is being conducted remotely as advertised and as in accordance with OCGA 50-14-1. The public may access the meeting by dialing 877-579-6743, conference ID 831-599-1256, which is noted on the work session's public notice. The public may also view the meeting on Channel 26, the Council's homepage at citycouncil.atlanta.ga.gov, the Council's YouTube channel, or the Council's Facebook and Twitter pages via @ATL Council. Additionally, the public was able to submit comments related to this work session via voicemail at 404-330-6021 between the hours of 4 and 7 p.m. the day before this work session. The work session agenda, presentations, and supplemental materials were made available this morning on the Atlanta City Council Community Development Human Services presentation page. All persons present on the remote council meeting conference bridge are requested to mute their phones and speakers. Additionally, speakers must be acknowledged by the presiding officer prior to speaking. All of the work session materials have been distributed to council members beforehand. Thank you all in advance for your cooperation.
Thank you very much. Quick overview of our agenda before we get started. In a moment, we're going to hear a presentation from Clyde Higgs, who is the president and CEO of Atlanta BeltLine, Inc., as well as Rob Bronner, who is the executive director of the Atlanta BeltLine Partnership. We will then move into a Q&A and discussion portion amongst council members. We have just under an hour of public comment that we will play at the conclusion of that discussion, and then we will discuss next steps. So with that, I will hand things over to Mr. Higgs and Mr. Bronner. Maybe.
Hello, Councilmember Westmoreland. You just unmuted. This is Rob Bronner. Thank you for having us. Is Clyde also on the phone?
Any idea, Ms. Polendini?
We're checking just right now. One moment, please.
Okay.
He has indicated to me via text that he is there, so perhaps his line is still muted.
Thank you. We're checking.
Councilmember Westmoreland, Mr. Higgs has said that he is getting a message saying that he is on hold.
Okay, we're gonna.
Not sure if that's helpful.
Thanks for that update. I'll just follow up with him on email just to make sure he has the right number, and we'll admit him into the line as soon as we can get him on.
All right, we will figure out this short-term solution in a little bit, but I just called Mr. Higgs and I have merged him onto the line. So we are, you there, Clyde?
I am here.
All right, there you go.
All right. Thank you, Councilmember Westmoreland. And so for those that don't know me, I'm Clyde Higgs, Chief Executive Officer for Atlanta BeltLine, Inc. And then I think you heard from my partner, Rob Bronner, who is the Executive Director for the Atlanta BeltLine Partnership. And thank you for giving us some time to talk about kind of the latest and greatest with regards to what we describe as the People's Project, the Atlanta BeltLine. Just real quick, and let's go ahead and move to the next slide, please. And so I'd like to share this Atlanta BeltLine vision slide with our program goals here, because I think oftentimes when people think about the Atlanta BeltLine, they oftentimes think about which is arguably kind of the star in some people's mind of the show, and that includes the trail. But we are so much more than the trail for the Atlanta BeltLine. You can see again on this vision slide, we are also responsible for the advancement in partnership with MARTA and the City of Atlanta, rail transit. We are responsible for doing our part in exacting housing affordability within the City of Atlanta, 5,600 units of affordable units, 30,000 permanent jobs by the end of 2030, 48,000 temporary construction jobs as well, all in a framework of equity and inclusion. And so what we want to talk to you today about is that we really, and we'll go to the next slide here, which kind of shows you where we are from a trails perspective. But we are at a significant inflection point in the Atlanta BeltLine's development. Over the next 18 to 24 months, we are going to have at least $300 million of projects that are shovel ready inside of the BeltLine catchment area. That is significant. We have moved on beyond being a planning and design organization to one that is really ready for construction. So to date, we have constructed just under 7 miles of trails for the 22-mile promise. And we have another 7.5 miles that are in design right now. I will say that this is the first time ever that we have had 3 trail segments under construction at once. And so that is significant for us. And you can see the items that here, actually under this grid, you can see under construction under yellow. So in the Northeast, we have also the South Side Trail in the Pittsburgh community, and then also the West Side Connector Trail in partnership with the Path Foundation. And so we talk about our trails not just from an infrastructure perspective, but ultimately how this is going to help families, how this is going to help individuals. And as we move into the next slide to talk about housing affordability, we know that this has been a challenge for us definitely in the past, and not only for the BeltLine, but just for the entire city of Atlanta. And so this is one of the things that has been really a focus, a staple of our efforts over the last 30 months. And so this slide is just really a quick snapshot of where we stand against the 5,600 unit promise by the end of 2030. We are just over 2,100 affordable units that have been created in the BeltLine tax allocation district. There's also been an additional 1,000 plus units that have been created just generally near the BeltLine, not necessarily in our tax allocation district, but units that have been created near the BeltLine. And we'll move on to the next slide here, where we'll talk about transit. But one of the things that I definitely want to mention under the housing bucket, we have been very aggressive in acquiring sites And for those that are not immersed in affordable housing speak, really what that's going to allow us to do is to create deeper and long-term affordability along the BeltLine within the city of Atlanta. And that is absolutely key if we're thinking about an Atlanta for all generations from now. And so acquiring these key sites, you may have read in the newspaper where we secured Avon Avenue about 4 months ago. This is the 9-acre site in the Adair Park, Oakland City community. And then also about a month ago, in partnership with the BeltLine Partnership and Wells Fargo, we were able to secure a significant site in Buckhead. And so this is going to allow us ultimately to push affordable opportunities for families right here in the city of Atlanta. And then also on the transit side, the transit piece is a part of our DNA. If you think about the early creation of the BeltLine, making sure that this is a transit initiative is in front of us. And so you may remember in 2016, the voters advanced the More MARTA program. This is ultimately going to raise over $3 billion for transit within the city of Atlanta. And about $900 million of that is going to be dedicated specifically to the BeltLine. So very excited about that. We are in partnership, obviously, with MARTA in the city of Atlanta, specifically on the east and west extension of the streetcar. And you will see more activity moving forward on that piece. We'll go to the next slide here as well. And this is really on the economic development side. And so oftentimes, again, I think we talk about the BeltLine as this inanimate, thing, this infrastructure piece, but it really is simply a tool for us to add value to community. And part of that value is absolutely on the job creation side. And so to date, we are tracking over 20,000 jobs, permanent jobs, that have been created along the BeltLine. And that is significant. And so you may remember earlier on when I made reference to the Southside Trail West segment, the reason we made that decision there is using kind of our equity mindset and where can we make key investments for community. But we also want to use the BeltLine as a way to connect job centers. And that's specifically why we started on the Southside Trail West segment into the Pittsburgh community. And so this is a significant slide for us. Again, we're tracking over 20,000 jobs on the permanent side. And right now we are looking at roughly 49,000 jobs on the temporary construction side of that equation. So something that we're really excited about. And then also just from a BeltLine TAD perspective. And so the TAD, the Tax Allocation District, is our primary funding source for the BeltLine. So you can imagine during 2008, 2012, that created some significant challenges for us, and it's partly why we are here today. So I do want to introduce my partner, Rob Bronner, to get involved in some of these conversations and just kind of give you a historical perspective just from a TAD performance and funding perspective. I think this will be helpful to the audience.
Great. Thank you, Clyde. And if the slide hasn't already been advanced to the TAD performance, that would be great. Thank you to the members of City Council for inviting us to speak to you about, really this important opportunity to finish the 22-mile BeltLine Trail corridor and importantly, advance an equitable economic recovery for the city. Rob Bronner, I'm Executive Director of the Atlanta BeltLine Partnership. We raised the philanthropic funds to help deliver the BeltLine, as well as oversee numerous programs to help residents live, work, and thrive along it. I've been with the partnership since 2006, and so I've seen the project evolve from a vision and in words and pictures to the benefits you see today. And on the TAD slide, I can speak from personal experience about some of the challenges that the project faced in the early years. We often get asked why the funding gap. You see here more than $1 billion shortfall in the projection of the TAD. Why does that exist? It is not because the original projections were unrealistic. In fact, we have seen tremendous development activity where the BeltLine has been built to date. The problem is that unanticipated events cut off early funding that delayed the ability to build the BeltLine sooner. And had that not happened, more development would have happened within the TAD, and there would not be the funding gap that we see today. I know many members of council are likely familiar with the events, but for the public and those who may not be familiar, I think it's important to remind everyone some of the things that transpired in the first decade of the project. The BeltLine redevelopment plan really was predicated on having multiple bond issuances throughout the 25-year implementation of the project. And the premise was to bring funding forward through bonds, right, to build the BeltLine, and that would stimulate development that would happen within the TAD, and then that would create additional tax increment that could be used to issue more bonds. And unfortunately, due to legal challenges to the constitutionality of school participation in tax allocation districts, not just for the BeltLine, but this was actually a statewide constitutional challenge. Between that, which ultimately required a constitutional amendment to reinstate school board participation in TADs, there were also subsequent renegotiations of pilot payments. And the result really was that Atlanta BeltLine Inc. was not able to issue its first fully financed TAD bond until the end of 2016. So that's more than a decade into the project. And this literally meant that hundreds of millions of dollars that should have been available to build the BeltLine and fuel TAD growth were simply not available. And so with ABI living year to year off of annual tax increment, other funding sources from philanthropy, from the city of Atlanta through Parks Department, watershed management, federal funding, they all stepped in to get as much of the BeltLine built as we could. But the reality is that those sources didn't provide nearly as much funding as was expected through the TAD bonds. And those same lawsuits also resulted in tens of millions of dollars never coming to the BeltLine at all in the early years. And that is funding that, if you think about it, could have been used to build, the East Side Trail, the West Side Trail many, many years sooner, but the money just wasn't there. And all of that's in addition to the economic slowdown that resulted from the Great Recession, and as well as some unanticipated use of tax abatements. And what we do know is where the BeltLine has been built, right, development and TAD growth has followed. Right, and if not for the legal challenges, the inability to issue bonds, the renegotiation of pilot payments, the Great Recession, if ABI actually had received the funding they were supposed to in the early years so that they could have built more BeltLine sooner, we wouldn't have this deficit now. Unfortunately, all those things did happen. They could not have been anticipated when the original projections were done. And we are in a situation now where funding through the Special Service District is absolutely critical if we're going to finish the full 22-mile BeltLine Trail corridor before the TAD expires in 2030. As you see from this graph, the TAD goes through 2030, and without bringing in additional funds now, the trail corridor will not be complete, and the benefits that it will bring will not come to the full set of communities around the BeltLine.
Thank you, Rob, I appreciate that. And we'll go to the next slide. That is just a quick overview of the Special Services District. And so if you could imagine the BeltLine loop. So we are essentially contemplating a taxing district around the BeltLine that would ultimately help us to generate additional funds as a part of the capital stack to complete the rest of the BeltLine. So we are anticipating that the construction of the BeltLine will roughly cost about $300 million. We have TAD funds that can bring $100 million to bear. We have strong signals from the philanthropic community that could bring $100 million. And then this SSD mechanism will also help us to generate $100 million. We would ultimately bond against the annual revenue that this SSD district would bring into the BeltLine, and this money will be helpful to allowing us to complete the entire 22-mile loop. And again, and just from a benefits perspective, and we'll go to the next slide, although we're talking about this SSD as a mechanism, as an instrument, we are really ultimately trying to drive benefits that are going to be helpful to the community at the end of the day. And so you can see on this Pathways to Growth in Communities slide here, the BeltLine, as Rod mentioned, brings so many benefits to community, from obviously growing the TAD to attracting new jobs, new job centers, safe routes to school, and then also getting the corridor prepared for future transit within the BeltLine are some of the key benefits. But as we move to the next slide that talks about some specificity in key buckets, and one of the main pieces that we are wanting to communicate today is on the affordable housing side. We believe that with the advancement of the SSD, that there is going to be an additional $50 million for housing affordability over the next 10 years of the BeltLine tax allocation district life, so by the end of 2030. And so these are additional dollars on top of our current commitment of roughly $90 to $100 million that we hope to put into affordable housing over the next 10 years. So this is additional dollars on top of that. And so one of the things that, again, I just want to make sure that people hear from an affordability strategy, having those extra dollars are key, because what this is going to allow us to do is to acquire key sites along the BeltLine. And again, why that's so important is once you control the land, then you can go deeper and longer with regards to affordability. And so our remit talks about 80% of area median income. What we are attempting to do is go deeper. So 60%, 50% of area median income versus the 80% that we were originally charged with. But in order to make that happen, you have to have control of the land. And so this extra $50 million that we'll be able to unlock is absolutely key. And then also another really key part of our housing strategy, and one that I will ask Rob Bronner to tell you about, but this is a part of the toolkit. There's no one silver bullet for housing affordability, but this next piece that you're going to hear from Rob Bronner is a key piece of that solution.
Thank you, Clyde. And I'll hit on a couple of things before we go to the next slide. But listed on this slide, you see the Atlanta Land Trust, which the Atlanta BeltLine Partnership led the effort with ABI and other key partners to form out of kind of recognition that the BeltLine is a generational project, and we can only maintain mixed income communities if affordability is permanent. Serving on the board of the Atlanta Land Trust certainly ensures that as they work to create permanently affordable housing around the full BeltLine loop, that those efforts are coordinated with BeltLine implementation and with ABI. We also have regular home empowerment workshops that we conduct throughout the community aimed at helping both homeowners and renters connect with the partners and the programs and the resources to stay in their homes. But as I think, as Clyde was alluding to, there's a major initiative, and if you go to the next slide, major initiative that we were able to launched towards the end of last year, which is our Legacy Resident Retention Program. And with lead funding from the Georgia Power Foundation and Bank of America, and modeled after the Westside Future Fund's similar program, this Legacy Resident Retention Program helps existing homeowners, predominantly in South and West BeltLine communities, stay in their homes by covering increases that they may see in their property taxes. The applicants we are seeing have been in their homes for more than 20 years, so we feel that to date we're absolutely helping the residents who are most in need and who this is intended to help. We have approved our first 11 recipients. We have another 25 in the pipeline. We continue to work with community partners to get the word out. We're certainly grateful to the members of City Council who have helped us to publicize this program. Over its 10-year lifespan, we expect this to be about a $12.5 million investment. There's currently more information for anybody who would like to learn more or possibly apply at beltline.org/retention fund. But working alongside the other affordability measures that Clyde described, this is a key piece to help existing homeowners stay in their homes as the BeltLine is built out. And I think going to the next slide, Clyde.
Yeah, thank you, Rob.
About small business.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you, Rob, for that description. And so one of the things that I think oftentimes gets lost in the conversation is again the businesses along the BeltLine, and I think you will see in the various articles out there, you hear perhaps some of the bigger names that have decided to locate along the BeltLine and in some fashion, some manner. But when you think about the thousands of businesses that are along the BeltLine, most of those are small. And so this SSD is going to also give us the ability to have an additional $7 million to support our small business community along the BeltLine. And so we have a team, our economic development team, that they exist specifically there to help those businesses along the corridor. We have a facade improvement program that we actually provide grants to small businesses to improve aesthetics of their facilities. But a part of this $7 million is going to allow us to have a program that is going to facilitate the access to the capital. And we're also working in this vein. And so we think about affordability. I think most people think about residential affordability, but affordability from a commercial perspective is also key. And so our economic development team with Kelvin and Kara will be working with our small business community and our development community to figure out strategies ultimately that will enact and exact affordability from a commercial perspective along the BeltLine as well. And we'll move to the next slide. And so this is a slide about access to economic opportunity from a BeltLine perspective. And so roughly, you may remember earlier in our comments, we talked about it's going to cost roughly about $300 million to build the BeltLine. And so this slide, what we're doing here is committing to a push to have 50% of those dollars being pushed into the minority small business firm perspective. And so we're in Atlanta. This is a city with a significant minority, Black population. And from an equity perspective, we want to be very intentional about making sure minority firms have an opportunity to get work in building the BeltLine Trail corridor and beyond. And so you will see some activities from the BeltLine team just sending the signals. Matter of fact, right before this call, I was on another Zoom call with the Minority Contracting Association, and just telling the community our expectations from a participation perspective. And again, when you think about, the BeltLine, it's beyond the trail. But what type of legacy can we leave over the next 10, 20, 30 years? And having those smaller minority firms participate in building the BeltLine, again, we're just leaving significant capacity there on the table for our construction and general construction community in the city of Atlanta. And I think that's one of those significant things that, again, the SSD and the BeltLine can deliver beyond what people think of the BeltLine from a trail perspective. We'll go to the next slide that we'll talk about boundaries, and I will ask Rob to talk about this slide.
Sorry, the next slide gives you a visual sense of the district that Clyde described earlier. I think it's important to point out, there is a commercial upside to the BeltLine, and again, where we have seen the BeltLine be built, development, people, customers, density has followed. And as a result, there's been a strong interest from the commercial community for finishing the trail corridor and continuing to bring those benefits to all parts of the city. And so what the map here shows is that the geography for this district would include those who have been benefiting from the completion of the corridor. So that's your commercial, your apartment property owners, generally within the BeltLine planning area. So that kind of dark gray area is the established BeltLine planning area, roughly a half mile either side of the BeltLine. And where the TAD extends beyond that, it includes that. If you go to the next slide, there's a breakdown of the properties that are currently contained within the district. It's a little bit more than 3,500 taxable properties at this point, with a breakdown between commercial properties and apartments, with the vast majority of the parcels being commercial, the value being in the apartments. We are continuing to finalize the district, but again, about 3,500 parcels, commercial and apartment, along the corridor within the BeltLine planning area. And then if you go to the next slide, what we wanted to make sure that the City Council and the public understand is that as a financing tool for finishing the trail corridor, we really believe that the Special Service District is a equitable funding tool. If you look at the distribution of how much each parcel would be paying, you can see that nearly half of the parcels on a annual basis at what we expect to be about 2 mils would be paying less than $250 per year, and more than 80% would be paying less than $1,000. And we feel this is consistent with those who have benefited the most financially will be paying or will be making the majority of the investment in helping to complete the trail corridor and again bring its benefits as promised to all of the communities along the BeltLine. If you go to the next slide, one of the questions, obviously we get lots of questions about, well, okay, but how does this really going to impact individual property owners and how much this will actually cost? So we wanted to just provide some examples. These are real life examples. We've maintained the confidentiality of the individual property owners, but just to give you a sense of the range of investments into the SSD that you may see. So on the commercial examples, you can see that much larger property owners, like for example a hospital, would be paying about $16,000 a year at our estimated 2 mils. But you can see once you get down to smaller businesses like a coffee shop or even a car repair shop, that those are much lower dollar amounts, $350, under $500 for those. If you go to the next slide, we also wanted to show some examples of multifamily or apartments who would be included in the district. There is quite a range, as you will hear and see the assessment for the SSD. There is no requirement, just to be clear, no requirement that this is passed through to renters. But we also did want to show in the event, just for proportion, what that would look like. So you can see luxury Class A as an example, with a assessed value of $17 million for a 248 unit development. That would be about $34,000 a year. On a per unit basis, that's about $12 a month. And those are for, again, luxury Class A apartments. We know affordability is of critical concern when you look at naturally occurring affordable and subsidized affordable apartments. Again, there's no requirement that this is passed through, but even if it were, it is very modest, $1, $2, $3 a month. And while we don't want to minimize or discount the financial situation of any individuals, we do feel that from an equity standpoint, again, you have folks who are in luxury apartments carrying the burden of the freight for those property owners. The other thing that I want to make sure is clear, because we've received this question as well, is from a timing standpoint. Obviously, the ordinances are in front of City Council right now. If approved, the assessment would appear on the property tax bills that go out this fall. And so the property owners themselves would be paying much later in the year. And then for businesses who lease commercial space and have a lease where they need to reimburse their landlord for property taxes, they should not expect to pay until a standard true-up period in the first quarter of 2022. Right, so we understand their economic challenges right now as we all recover from COVID, but given the trajectory of COVID cases and vaccinations, we expect that the timing being later in the year and in some cases next year in terms of when this would actually be applied, that we'll be out of the pandemic. And then Clyde, I think, is going to talk a little bit about the actual financing of the bonds.
Yeah, so let me touch on this real quick. And so again, the SSD, the Special Services District, the hope is that it would generate enough funds to support a $100 million bond. We think this is going to be a 30-term revenue bond ultimately issued by Invest Atlanta. And what this does, just to remember, this $100 million from the SSD will ultimately unlock about $250 million of funding that will help us to complete the trail and then also push those additional benefits into community. And so let's go into the next slide that talks about the trail budget and expenditures that we are estimating right now. And so this is hopefully everyone can see this pie chart here, but this is just kind of a breakdown from an allocation perspective where we anticipate those dollars going. And you can see perhaps the two biggest chunks are for what we describe as the northwestern segment here in the yellow, about 36% of the dollars being allocated there. And then about 31% on the northeast segment of the BeltLine. And then you can see the remaining two pieces here, 22% for the Southside Trail and 11% for the West Side Trail. And just context for that is moving forward. That obviously does not represent all of the money that's been expended over the last 15 years. We were just talking about this point forward. And so you see here on the west side, like you may ask the question, why is it only 11%? Because the West Side Trail has already been blessed with significant investment already over the last decade of BeltLine. And so just doing the math there, if you've front-loaded several sections, then you obviously don't need as much funding moving forward by the end of 2030. And we'll go to the next slide. And this slide, this trail budget and expenditure continued as we talk about the $350 million budget for the BeltLine. This is just a breakout of expenses. The majority of those dollars, almost 3/4, are going to literally be used for construction. And the other significant piece is just acquiring the real estate, the right-of-way, the easements, and so forth. That is going to be a significant undertaking. And then to a smaller degree, utility relocation and engineering services are the breakout that we're anticipating for the BeltLine. Going to the next slide, please. And so the posture that we want to be in, obviously, is trying to over-communicate about the BeltLine and the Special Services District. You can see here on this slide, we hope just over the next 20 or 30 days to have 6, perhaps 7 community meetings, just demystifying all the moving pieces of the SSD. And so hope folks will continue to come out. We actually had one on yesterday, and we'll have another today as well at 6 p.m. And so this is just our schedule of planned community conversations about the Special Services District. And so in summary, and we'll go to the final slide here, although we are talking about a financing mechanism called the Special Services District, we're really talking about how do we drive benefits to people at the end of the day. And this Special Services District will be a key tool in helping us do that with the $50 extra million for housing affordability, the 50% participation for minority businesses in actually constructing the BeltLine, the $7 million of extra funding for small businesses, the additional 20,000 jobs that will be created if we can actually complete the BeltLine by 2030. And then you may remember Rob Bronner talking about the Community Retention Fund, the $12.5 million there to help legacy residents stay in their homes if they wish to do so as the BeltLine is advanced. And so that is the conclusion of our formal presentation. Chairman Westmoreland, but we really appreciate the attention to this, and we're happy to answer any questions that you all may have. So Rob Bronner will be on the call, and also Kim Wilson, who is our lead for design and construction, will be on the call if there are any technical questions about the trail.
Good deal. Thank you very much to both of you for your presentation. Want to acknowledge Councilman Hillis, who's the lead sponsor on this piece of legislation, as well as to acknowledge Councilmember Bond, who joined us some time ago as the presentation was getting underway. Colleagues, any questions or comments? Mr. Shook, why don't you kick us off?
All right. I don't want to go before committee members, but so I think if you look back, my memory is hazy. I think I'm one of the original co-sponsors of the BeltLine TAD. I've been with it through thick and thick, despite some kind of bumps along the way. There was a question I asked then that I'll ask again now. Even though the BeltLine demonstrably has done really well in terms of attracting investment and turning things around and making things happen and making everybody feel good, I guess it's not moving as fast as some people would like. And maybe that's because we've had a couple recessions since then. As I remember, the original model made no allowance for that. Am I wrong?
Yeah. So Councilmember Shook, I think you're correct there. And that's actually very consistent with, so a few years ago, we produced a community survey and we asked the question, is the BeltLine, still worthy of investment? Does the community still want it? And over 80% of the respondents suggested that yes, they still wanted it. It was a good thing, good use of public dollars. Some of the blemishes in that survey, Councilmember Shook, was consistent with what you said. The first piece was, affordable housing, making sure that we are in front of the housing affordability challenges. And the second piece was, why does it take so long to build out the BeltLine? I think there's a perception out there, like, when is it ever going to get to my neighborhood, and that we're moving at this snail's pace. And really that is a function of our funding. I talked about earlier in this presentation, all of our program goals. We have to spread out our resources to kind of feed each one of those programmatic elements. And again, with the challenges from the TAD, and you may remember Rob talking about some of the lawsuit challenges, it has been simply a funding challenge for us. And but with this in front of us, we think we have a way to play catch up and finish the BeltLine trail and those benefits that we talked about at least by 2030.
All right. Well, I warned people about the validity of the legal challenge way back when and got laughed out of the room. Couple of editorial comments quickly, and then another question. So one thing that's always kind of bothered me is the gerrymandering of the TAD boundary up into the northeast, which used to be 7, now less and less so. These are people who are helping, helping to pay for it. They're also, not getting the tax benefits that they might otherwise get, but they're not connected to it. And I see that the SSD would extend up in there as well, and so that's something I want to talk about more in the future. So there's going to be this increased tax base, and so what kind of voices will the newly taxed have in terms of where their money is spent?
Yeah, Rob, you want to weigh in that? Rob has had some of those good conversations with those property owners. So, Rob, I'm just weigh in here.
Well, property owners. So you're talking about, this whole thing is built on the premise that an apartment complex, right, is a commercial deal. My question is, what about the people who live there?
Mm-hmm. So Councilmember Schick, thank you very much for your question. And when you ask about the voices, I guess one thing that I'll just share, and then maybe there's a follow-up question from this, is that as we've stated here, and this came largely from the direction of the property owners who would be at least having this appear on their property tax bills, that there was a very clearly stated intent that this funding be used only for trail corridor completion. And as a result, the ordinances and the bonds and everything else is intended to lock in the kind of exclusive use of those funds to trail corridor completion. And there's not wiggle room around that. And so there are also, from a transparency standpoint, and Clyde's team and his government affairs team worked obviously closely with City Council and the community engagement team, but having transparency in how the funds are used which I'd like Clyde to speak more to, but I know regular updates to City Council, to this committee, public meetings with quarterly briefings and such, so that there is assurance that the funds are used as intended for the completion of the trail corridor. Clyde, I don't know if you would add there, or if that answers your question, Councilmember Shaw.
Well, let me try a different way. And you can get back to me if you don't have this off the top of your head. How many, and I'm not talking about property owners, if you own, Spacely Sprockets, Pizzeria, I guess that's one person. If you own a 150 unit apartment building, I guess that's one person. Correct me if I'm wrong. But how many residents will have this tax passed along to them?
I see. All right, go ahead, Rob.
Well, as I say, I mean, this tax, again, applies to commercial and apartment properties. I'm not sure if your question's about single-family homes. It does not apply to single-family homes.
No. If I live in a 100-unit apartment complex, we all suppose this tax gets passed along to the residents. Am I right about that?
There is nothing about the ordinance that requires it to be passed along to the residents. I mean, many property owners, apartment owners will say that they charge the rents that the market can bear. And if they could charge more now, they would. And if they can't charge more now, they won't. And that the underlying cost expenses, including property taxes, isn't necessarily an automatic pass-through.
Yeah. So let me try to ask my question so that people understand it. I'm sorry if I'm vague, but I want to know how many apartment tenants there are in the proposed district.
Let me get back to you. I can get that for you during this call.
That's fine. I don't expect you to know it. And then an editorial thing from a conservative's point of view, and boy, plenty of other people on this call will laugh at this, but boy, I would really invite you to find some other way to kind of break this down to low gravy, because I mean, I think there's a lot of people that when it's kind of, our money that we earn and it gets dumbed down to the cost of a Big Mac, there's a lot of people who get more offended when they hear that from government than anything they can possibly hear. So thank you. I'm done.
Thank you much. Ms. Shepard.
Yes. I have questions in reference to small business along the corridor, the BeltLine corridor. So clearly let me understand. So if I'm in a commercial corridor, I may not be sitting in the BeltLine, but the BeltLine boundaries are within a mile radius or whatever. So that means that I'm a part of the BeltLine area. So that means if we actually do the special service district, I will be taxed at a larger rate. Is that correct? I own a mom and pop store.
If you own the facility, Councilmember Shepard, then you will be taxed this roughly $2 million increase within the district. We're roughly talking about the planning area if you're a property owner.
Which is not own commercial property or multifamily, but more so commercial property. I saw one of your things, a tire shop. I own a little restaurant. I own something. I actually own the land. Then I will be taxed at a larger rate. I know we've been getting a lot of letters from big businesses saying we support this, but how have we actually communicated this to the small businesses around these particular boundaries? Has that been communicated, that this is being contemplated? How have y'all got the word out to them?
Yeah, we have, we've started that process. And again, this whole month of February and even into March are having a number of community conversations. Our economic development team has been working with, having conversations with a number of the businesses and really, again, helping people to understand what the impact is going to be. And so that slide that you saw earlier about a coffee shop that has, an assessed value of $175 million or $175,000, what is that going to mean from an annual basis from an SSD perspective? And so our team has been in direct conversation with a number of those businesses and getting feedback, and we'll continue to do that again throughout this month and into March and beyond.
So this is one of my angst that I'm really concerned about, because as the BeltLine grows, we know that the value of the property around the BeltLine is going up also. So the value of the property goes up, the taxes go up automatically. Then we are now putting on top of that another tax. And then doing an assessment of those small businesses like the coffee shops and everybody else to see financially, can they keep up with this pace? Can they do it? It's kind of like you don't want to displace anybody that says, I can't keep up with it. Can I keep up with the pace in terms of how it's accelerating? So that's one of my concerns. And the other question that goes along with that is, when we say more benefits for small businesses is $7 million, with some of the businesses I'm talking about fall into that category, and then define for me, what does that mean? Access to capital, commercial affordability, creations and support, technical assistance, entrepreneurship, and micro business support. That is for existing business or for new business. Maybe understand, if I'm in that category, can I go after some of the $7 million? If I'm in a hardship or something like that.
So that is for existing businesses, and then also support for businesses that are going to be newly formed as well. And so let's take the example of this coffee shop, and with the assessed value of $175,000, that is roughly, if you're thinking about this from a month-to-month perspective, that's going to mean roughly a $29, $30 a month increase on their taxes. And what we have heard mostly from the small business community is that, again, the foot traffic and the opportunity to be near new customers, significantly new customers, would definitely offset the cost in value and this SSD that they would have to take on. And so that's been the majority of the feedback that we've received. And so in that mindset, we continue to have these conversations and sharing the fine print about what this means. But the majority of the conversation and feedback has been, if I can get the BeltLine connected and get that additional foot traffic, then the benefit outweighs the cost.
What about like a car shop? Like I see a car repair shop. That's one of your analogies in slide number 17 for commercial property. So I have a car repair shop in this boundary, and as the BeltLine grows, I may have to come after some funding, because I haven't done a lot in terms of keeping up the space. I've been struggling just to make it as a car repair shop. I own the property. Would you all be reaching out to them in terms of them being an entrepreneur and saying, look, here's what's getting ready to happen. How can we help you to grow your business? What can we do to get you entrenched in terms of, we know the impact that this BeltLine is going to have on you all? Are you going to be doing programs to actually talk to small businesses like that? Because I know a lot of small businesses not even enough along the BeltLine boundaries. They just don't even get it. They don't understand what's happening. Who is educating them and making them understand all these things?
Yeah, and again, a lot of those efforts are being pushed from the economic development group in the BeltLine team, and then also not only communicating our resources that we have from a BeltLine perspective, but there are a number of benefits and opportunities even through other city organizations like Invest Atlanta that we will communicate to those businesses as well. And so, you talked about this car repair shop, and if they haven't made any repairs or enhancements to their property over time, one of the things that we have available to us is even a facade improvement program, again, where we're able to come in and provide grants. It's not a loan, but this is grants where we actually marry up artists within the community that will then partner with this existing business. And then there's this whole beautification opportunity right there for that existing business there. And that's part of the program that we will expand as the SSD. If the SSD comes to fruition, we're going to grow that. Because right now that pot is limited, as you can imagine, council member. But that's one of the things that we're going to expand if the SSD is advanced.
So this $7 million that we have allocated for entrepreneurship, that's over the next, X amount of years? Is that, this $7 million, can that grow? I mean, is that going to be enough in terms of what we're talking about in terms of entrepreneurship? How realistic is that?
Yeah, I think it's something that definitely, could grow. And this is $7 million in addition to the money that we have programmed over the next 10 years, even if the SSD was not put into place. So when we talk about the $7 million, these are additional dollars that we think we will have to bring to bear.
Okay. Those are my concerns. I just wanted to put them out there. I think it's important that if we go through this process, that as we're doing all the other things, that this is something else over and above that, but that we've got to do it in a way that there's a balance and that we're reaching out to all owners, not just the cadre of owners, but everybody, to make sure they're educated and understand what's going on and to make sure that they have buy-in also. That's all I have.
Okay. Thank you very much, Councilmember Shepherd. Councilmember Hillis.
Thank you, Chairman Westmoreland. My question is probably just a follow-up. I know that we have discussed some tweaking of the language around tightening up the spending language and possibility of audits and things like that. But the one thing I'm really still waiting on to see that I would really like is on the trail completion chart for the different segments. And I see in the presentation how you've broken it down, the southwest side, given a dollar amount for that. But I'd really like to see each one of these rows on this chart corresponds to a total amount of the cost, so we can show the math as to how that we're getting to the $350 million left to fund the construction of the BeltLine. So can I get that, and what would be the timeline?
Yeah, so absolutely, we will share that. That's something that we're actually going to ultimately put on our SSD page, and we're going to talk about quadrants. So these slides that you see here will ultimately go up into the BeltLine website, and then also we will be able to provide some additional specificity to some of those areas. So one of the things that will be released soon, and specifically, so Councilmember Hillis, for you to think about, is that there is going to be this RFQ that's going to allow us to have some additional clarity in what the Northwest segment is going to need and what it's going to look like. And I think, once we get information back from that scoping study, then I think we'll have some really specific numbers to share there.
I understand the Northwest is kind of a moving target. But one, how long is it going to be before we have those numbers for the Northwest Trail? And two, if that's going to be, months out, this is something I want to see before we pass this, so we can see specific numbers. And, they don't have to be down to the exact dollar and cent amount, but at least some estimates showing on each one of these roads how we get to that 350 and what each segment. Some rows contain two segments. So just make that request, please.
you much, Mr. Hillis. Colleagues, any other questions or comments? I meant to mention earlier that we were joined some time ago by Councilmember Natalie Archibong as well. I do not see anybody else in the queue. Anyone else have thoughts on their mind? All right.
Councilmember Westmoreland. Sorry, this is Rob Bronner again. So, Councilmember Shook, there are about 37,750 units in the proposed district on the apartments, and I believe, and Councilmember Hillis, we could certainly get this to you later as well, but I think in some of the reference slides we might have I believe we have a more detailed breakdown of the Northwest if that's of interest to bring up now, or it could be sent separately.
Well, no. Yeah. So thank you for the very quick response to that. I appreciate it.
Yes, I understand the reference slides. I'm just asking, in the projected timeline for completion start on each one of those roads that reflect the segments of different parts of the trail, we could get an estimated dollar amount for each of those roads. So, for example, Northeast Trail Segment 6 would cost X millions of dollars to complete, and so on all the rest of the roads. So that's what I'm asking for. Thank you.
Got it. All right. A couple comments before we move to public comment. One, as Clyde mentioned earlier, there are 5 more community meetings. One of them is tonight. The remainders are on February 18th, 23rd, March 1st, and 4th. All of those will take place before we have any discussion of potential action by the council. There are actually 3 pieces of legislation. 2 of them are being held. They're dual refers currently in CD, and it'll go on to FEC. And then there's one paper that is just FEC. So be on the lookout for all of that. If no one else has any other questions or comments, we have 37 messages from the public. It clocks in at about 53 minutes and 26 seconds. And so we can go and play that now. And then we'll be back right at 3 o'clock to adjourn our meeting. So thank you both for your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, I'd just like to say I oppose this is Charles McCrary, MCCRARY. I oppose the Special Services District as it's proposed right now. It's really bad timing. To add to the burden that COVID ravaged businesses have right now, there's also no assurance that it will be spent in the West Side. The West Side's provided 21% of the tax allocation district revenue, although we only have 9% of the trails, so I think we've already contributed a disproportionate amount. We'd like to be sure it's spent in our neighborhood. I think the homeowners should also shoulder the burden because they benefit also, and that would hopefully lower the millage increase that would be needed. I don't think there's any cap on I don't know a lot, but I don't think there's a cap on the tax increase, and it needs to have it has to have a hard stop date where it would end and not be there for the next year before it was ever proposed again. Promises that were made with Renew Atlanta and Complete Streets, Howell Mill Corridor have not been materialized. And in 2017, our taxes almost doubled for commercial properties a year before the homeowners. Business has just been hit hard in the past 2 years, and I think this is just terrible and going about it the wrong way. Thanks for letting me express my opinion, and I'll look forward to the meeting tomorrow. Bye.
Hello, my name is Larry Cardinal. I'm a resident in West Midtown Atlanta, and my question is about the Special Service District not applying to single-family homes. I'm trying to understand how this will affect me as a renter. So I'm a resident in West Midtown as a renter, and I'm worried that my rent will go up as part of this new program. So I want to make sure that does not happen. Thank you.
Hi, this is Elizabeth Hollister. I am calling on behalf of the Upper West Side Community Improvement District. I have previously circulated our board's resolution about the BeltLine Special Services District. I wanted to just summarize a few of the points here in the official public forum for the council work session on this legislation. Our community improvement district lies fully within sub-area 8 of the BeltLine, and many of the properties are in the Atlanta BeltLine tax allocation district. And in the last 10 years, approximately $70 million in tax allocation increments has been collected within sub-area 8 and paid into the BeltLine TAD. The 2-mile segment of the BeltLine TAD that's within the CID is responsible for approximately 21% of the TAD increment collected in 2020. However, no BeltLine trail segment or other BeltLine infrastructure has been constructed or even design started within sub-area 8 since the TAD was created in 2005. Commercial property owners within the CID contribute a disproportionate share of the existing TAD increment as compared to the benefits received. ABI's schedules show that sub-area 8 will be the last segment of the BeltLine Trail to be constructed. And so without a guarantee of the proportionality of the tax levy to the benefits to be received by this proposed SSD with its additional 2 mills of ad valorem taxes, the SSD would propose an unreasonable burden on the commercial property owners served by the CID. So our board would support the creation of the BeltLine SSD and the 2 mill tax on commercial and multifamily properties to construct the BeltLine Trail if and only if the legislation is amended to ensure that the portion of the SSD tax collected within sub-area 8 is used solely to acquire property for design and construct the BeltLine Trail within sub-area 8. We also would request additional transparency and accountability in the form of allowing the city auditor to audit the BeltLine SSD financials at least every 2 years, and also the creation of a stakeholder advisory board consisting of stakeholders from each sub-area who are actually paying the tax to oversee the implementation of the SSD and advise on it. We'd also like to see the definition of what the funds can be spent on tightened so that it's just for acquisition of property for the BeltLine Trail as well as design and construction specifically. Thank you to the council for your time considering these points, and I hope you can discuss them further in the work session.
Lori Leonidas, commercial property owner on Huff Road. Before any tax is imposed, I would like to know exactly where it's going, when it's going to be spent, and what it's going to be spent on. I mean, we already pay outrageous taxes, and there are potholes that you could live in all over the area. So I'm anti more tax. Thank you. Bye.
My name's Nancy, and I have some concerns about the BeltLine Special Services District tax. The BeltLine organization has only built 7 miles of trails since 2005, so they really have overpromised and underdelivered for the last 16 years. So I'm just wondering, with this new tax, what will guarantee that the organization will stay on budget and deliver on time? Also, I'm just wondering why the BeltLine public meetings about this tax are after the city council work session. It seems like it'd be hard to weigh in on the issue if people haven't had the chance to attend an information session. So the city council really needs to take a hard look at how the BeltLine organization is being run before we consider passing another tax, especially right now during COVID. Thanks.
Good afternoon, city council members. My name is Jason Jeter, and I live and also run a small business in Old Fourth Ward. While we support the completion of the Atlanta BeltLine, we do not feel the BeltLine Special Service District proposal reflects the best interests of the small business communities along the BeltLine. Lessons learned from the East Side BeltLine in Old Fourth Ward have revealed that without critical city investment in pedestrian infrastructure and amenities, businesses in the BeltLine playing area are unable to attract foot traffic from the growth brought about by the BeltLine. As written, the current legislation serves to remove needed resources from our community and does not include accountability measures to ensure the BeltLine adequately serves small businesses in the neighborhood, businesses throughout the district. We urge you to consider the recommendation put forth by the Old Fourth Ward Business Association and prioritize the needs of elections, small business communities. Thank you so much. Once again, my name is Jason Jeter, and I am a small business owner in the area. Thank you.
Hello, this is John O'Brien. I was going to leave a comment about the proposed SSD tax legislation. I'm a resident of Blandtown, and actually I'm also the president of the Blandtown Neighborhood Association. Now I'm speaking in my personal capacity. We have not discussed this as a neighborhood association, but expect to do so at our next meeting scheduled for tomorrow. Just wanted to raise some concerns. Look, I'm all for, and I think most people are all for the BeltLine and appreciate what it brings to the city of Atlanta. However, as my understanding is, I feel like this is really in need of public input, public comment, and a little more transparency. I think this is being pushed through very quickly, and I think I know folks in the Upper West Side COD have already pointed out, that we've paid this region sub area has paid a significant portion of the taxes associated with the BeltLine for its development elsewhere in the city, yet still has yet to see any sort of construction, let alone even planning for the BeltLine for the sub area 8. So, I guess my concern there is I think there needs to be some sort of provisions in here that there's a guarantee of proportionality to the tax benefits received. So if there is a burden placed on sub area 8 with respect to businesses that are contributing, that some of that money needs to be earmarked to stay into sub area 8 to help with at least the initial design phase and hopefully initial construction of the BeltLine. So with that, I just wanted to leave a note saying that I am actually opposed personally to this being pushed through as quickly as it is, and then I think it should be open for public input, comment, and there needs to be more transparency and also some additional proportionality to the tax benefits received. So with that, I thank you, and if you need to reach out, my number is 630-401-9512. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Max Mandelis. I'm a stakeholder along the Marietta Street artery, and I wanted to bring up the planning area versus the half-mile buffer. There's a lot of confusion amongst the neighbors about what is included. And looking at the planning area on the west side, it's much wider than the half mile that's been that keeps being relayed. So it would be important to get some clarity on that. Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Dan Silverboard, and I'm calling on behalf of myself and other renters in Atlanta. I believe that the way this thing is proposed, that renters will bear the burden of the SSD tax the council is considering, because apartment owners are just going to pass the tax down to renters in the form of rental increases. And then second, I understand that the tax will affect people in the planning district, but quite frankly, the BeltLine is a city-wide amenity, and I feel like it should be bared by everyone in the city, not just those who live in the special planning district. I mean, passing on a $2 million tax increase on a finite group of people seems rather severe when what's going on in the district is an amenity that's shared by the entire citizenry of the city of Atlanta. Thank you.
Hi, this is Beverly Dabney calling on behalf of West Atlanta Business Alliance. I am calling. We have had almost no communication regarding the BeltLine special tax district, and currently right now we could benefit more from sidewalks in our community. We have a lack of sidewalks and have had a horrible time with getting just the infrastructure needs met. It would be a disservice to a lot of our business in this area. simply because they have suffered on COVID-19. And I just wanted to go on record and say that with that almost no information, also a lot of the business, I've had a hard time just operating day to day. Thank you.
Jennifer Omi with Ideal Design. I'm a community development consultant, and I have consulted with the Old Fourth Ward Business Association, Kirkwood Business Owners Association, Castleberry Hill Neighborhood Association, Little Five Points Alliance, Piedmont Heights Alliance. I believe in the BeltLine, and I believe that small business owners located around the BeltLine and near the BeltLine within the planning area directly benefit from the energy that comes from developing the BeltLine, providing jobs, having more commercial space, a diversity of space, the art that is on the BeltLine. This all enriches neighborhoods and gives small business owners who have been legacy and new some new energy to be able to catalyze their business and grow. I support finishing the loop, and then that would make all the neighborhoods and business districts around the 22-mile loop equitable. Thank you so much for your support.
This is Michael Paris, President and CEO of the Council for Quality Growth. We are a not-for-profit trade association representing over 300 companies comprised of architects, attorneys, contractors, developers, engineers, financial executives with a vested interest in quality growth and development in the city of Atlanta. Today, we have an immediate opportunity to fulfill the dream of completing the Atlanta BeltLine with the creation of the BeltLine Special Service District, which provides funding that would be difficult to achieve from any other source. The sustained assistance from the SSD would provide a myriad of benefits in addition to allowing for the completion of the BeltLine. For instance, the SSD will dedicate $7 million to support small businesses and help them thrive. Neighborhoods in Southeast and Southwest Atlanta facing considerable challenges due to gentrification will receive over $50 million toward affordable housing. And the BeltLine is committed to recruiting 42% of contractors from the Black and minority business community to complete the trail, which in turn would pump an estimated $150 million into the same struggling communities. We respectfully ask that this committee keep in mind the benefit of a completed BeltLine and what it brings to affordable housing and the unprecedented economic development that will come with it. This tool will provide opportunities and deliver a total impact of over $10 billion over time to the city. This is good for everyone. The Council for Quality Growth is fully supportive and stands ready to help in any way we can as you deliberate the creation of the BeltLine Special Service District. Thank you.
Stephen May, thanks for taking my comment. Again, I wanted to add one last thought and make sure I stated this very succinctly and very clearly, that the legislation as written does not guarantee that funds raised in the Upper West Side District will be spent here. Again, this district, residents, businesses have paid taxes for years and have not seen one iota of BeltLine construction. I think we need to absolutely ensure that there's an equitable distribution of the taxes that are raised and they are spent in the community in which they are raised. I think we all want to see the BeltLine completed, but we need to ensure that the money raised is spent in the communities where it is raised. Thank you. Hi, my name is Stephen May, and I wanted to leave a comment on the proposed BeltLine SSD tax proposal. I understand it has numerous loopholes that need to be closed to ensure the northwest portion is built with the new tax revenue. I'd like to submit the Upper West Side Community Improvement District's drafted resolution that addresses these loopholes. Look, at the end of the day, the community and the businesses and the Upper West Side area have paid taxes for years and years, and we haven't so much as seen a drop of BeltLine construction. We do have the trails over by the Bobby Jones area, but outside of that, there's not even been a proposal or a drafted trail diagram to show us what part of the BeltLine is going to look like coming through our communities. So I'd like to submit that for consideration, and really hate to see our tax dollars again go to other areas of the city and subsidize BeltLine construction elsewhere when they need to be spent very locally. So that's the goal at the end of the day. And unfortunately, this legislation gets drafted, unsurprisingly, with numerous loopholes earmarked for whomever's benefit. I think there's a lot of distrust in government as of late, especially the city of Atlanta government and how it's been run. So anything that can help shore that up and really make sure that the people who are paying into the taxes see the benefit in their local communities, not just local as in Atlanta, but local as in down the street. I think that's the way to look at this. So wanted to submit that as my opinion and hope it's considered in tomorrow's meeting. Thank you.
Stephanie Vance. Good afternoon, City Council members. My name is Stephanie Vance, and I run a small business in the Old Fort Ward. While I do support the completion of the Atlanta BeltLine, but mine is a destination business, so I do not see direct business from the BeltLine driving to my business. I have people from all over the state and also from neighboring states visiting my business, but I don't really see how my business is benefiting from the BeltLine itself. And because of that, and also because of the current economic situation in the U.S. and also in Georgia with COVID and the mini recession happening at the end of last year, I do not see that special service district, tax district would benefit small businesses at this time. As a member of the Old Fourth Ward Business Association, we would love to certainly work with the City Council to explore different opportunities in order to get funds together for the BeltLine. But there are other measures that I'm a little bit wary about, accountability of the BeltLine business that regarding the money that is collected and what happens, who is accountable and who oversees that. These are all questions that I had previously discussed with the Old Fourth Ward Business Association, and we are still looking for some answers there. So for my personal business, I do see this as a negative thing in regard of growth going forward from this very unprecedented year 2020. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Thomas Bond. I am a commercial property owner in the Midtown West area of Atlanta. Two properties on Huff Road, one at 1088 Huff Road and the adjacent property at 1092 Huff Road. I am a BeltLine proponent, but it sounds like our area is currently near the bottom of the food chain on receiving the benefits from the BeltLine. And I do not want to be taxed now for what may or may not happen in the distant future. With a 2 mil tax, I would have to pay somewhere between, I think, $1,500 and $1,600 per year in extra tax. And that will only go up as in-town property assessments continue to rise. Again, my phone number is 404-786-7922, but those are my thoughts. Thank you so much. Bye-bye. My email address is T as in Tom, P as in Peter, Bond, B-O-N-D, 49@gmail.com. Thank you. Bye.
My name is Paul Rollet. We own several properties along the BeltLine. As much as I don't want to be taxed, I want to see the BeltLine built.
quickly, and I am in support of this to get it over the goal line. So please vote yes. Thank you.
Good afternoon, City Council members. This is Emma Tinsley from the Old Fourth Ward Business Association. We represent over 100 small and local businesses on the East Side BeltLine Trail. While we support the completion of the BeltLine, we do not feel that the current legislation reflects the best interests of the small business communities along the BeltLine. Lessons learned from the East Side BeltLine and the Old Fourth Ward have revealed that without critical city investment in pedestrian infrastructure, businesses in the BeltLine planning area have a hard time attracting foot traffic from the BeltLine. Without proper investment in small businesses, community advocacy capacity, and pedestrian infrastructure, local businesses in the Old Fourth Ward have a hard time reaping the benefits of the growth brought back by the BeltLine. As currently written, the legislation serves to remove critical resources from our community and does not provide a special service or benefit to the Old Fourth Ward. We urge you to consider a list of recommendations put forth by the Old Fourth Ward Business Association, including a small business support fund and a neighborhood support fund that would run along the 30-year timeline of the BeltLine SSD. Please prioritize the needs of Atlanta's small business community as you consider this legislation. This is a community that is really struggling right now amidst the pandemic, and without proper consideration, this legislation could have detrimental impacts on our small businesses. Thank you.
This is Robin Rosenberg, the owner of property on Huff Road. And I have a few concerns. One has to do with where the BeltLine actually will be. Not sure I understand exactly how close the properties that would be taxed would be to the actual BeltLine, and what the timing would be for the BeltLine. Could be paying in a whole lot of years, and I'm hopeful that it will actually come to be, but also I'm concerned about the additional funding that might be required before it's completed. So I'm hopeful you'll be able to address these questions. I want to support the BeltLine and whatever it needs, but I do have concerns about how that money will be used and whether it would stay in the area that collects the money. Thank you very much.
Hello, my name is Rebecca Pleasant. I just want to say greetings to the city council members. I run a small business in the Old Fourth Ward. While I do support the completion of the Atlanta BeltLine, we do not feel the BeltLine and Special Service District proposal reflects the best interest of the small business communities along the BeltLine. Without proper investment in small businesses, community advocacy, capacity, and pedestrian infrastructure, local businesses in the Old Fourth Ward will not reap the benefits of the growth that is brought about by the BeltLine. Thank you, and we urge you to consider the recommendations put forth by the Old Fourth Ward Business Association and prioritize the needs of Atlanta's small business community. Thank you.
This is Bobby West, a managing partner with Trevor Residential based in Atlanta. We are a multifamily development, construction, and management firm with multiple properties in the BeltLine overlay. On behalf of Trevor Residential, I wanted to make it clear that we, as property owners in the BeltLine overlay, are certainly for the BeltLine, but adamantly opposed to the BeltLine SSD. As members in good standing in the Atlanta Apartment Association, we are happy to work with BeltLine and City Council on alternative solutions, as we have done for the last several years. But again, we would like to restate our opposition to the BeltLine SSD. Thank you.
My name is Stuart Medin, and I own two properties in the area that will be impacted by the 2 mil tax in the Chattahoochee area. And two things. I wanted to support the CID's position on the tax and how it needs to be dealt with within the city and the issues that they've raised on their letter. But the other thing is, I saw that you're saying it's approximately the median tax is about $1,000 a year in commercial properties. And with each of my properties, one is about $1,800. The other is about $2,000 a year additional tax. And one of the properties is vacant as it is. So please take that into consideration when you say it's just a minimal tax on people. Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Brandon Lai. I am calling about the proposed BeltLine SSD. I would like to urge City Council members to continue to keep this in committee. As I believe y'all know, the Old Fourth Ward Business Association, the Upper West Side CID, and other community organizations are submitting recommendations. I think these recommendations need to be considered thoroughly. I especially endorse the Old Fourth Ward Business Association recommendations to strengthen accountability and to strengthen the benefits to small businesses in our area. The Old Fourth Ward has seen what the BeltLine can do to an area, and there are a lot of lessons to be gleaned from over here. So I think it's important that City Council acknowledges those lessons and really listens to what we have to say. Thank you very much, and I hope this again stays in committee and these recommendations will be considered. Cheers.
My name is Johnny Martinez. I'm one of the owners of Joystick Game Bar and Georgia Beer Garden in the Old Fourth Ward. Will be directly affected by this SSD. We encourage you to rethink the passage of this tax on small businesses and renters. We are still in the middle of a pandemic, and quite frankly, we don't receive any benefit from falling in the BeltLine overlay as it is. We believe that this tax should be spread evenly around for all people, including single family homeowners who benefit the most from the BeltLine itself. And we believe that there needs to be rail as a part of this final completion, quote unquote, of the BeltLine. As members of the Old Fourth Ward Business Association, would fully support the recommendations and the resolution that was sent by the Executive Board of the Business Association asking for changes to the SSD and for more oversight. It's become clear in the little bit of research that we've done that the BeltLine doesn't have anyone who makes sure that they do what they say they're supposed to do. And at times it feels like it's a never-ending request for funds. So we want the BeltLine completed. We want it completed with rail. We want it completed in a way that's good for the people of Atlanta, and not just for large developers who already made the choice to invest in land surrounding it. This has not yet had enough public input. The BeltLine has had months and months and months. The people who are against this have had weeks and weeks and weeks. There needs to be as much time given to those of us who are not for this SSD as was to the entity that decided to go forward with it. But thank you so much.
Hello, this is Stephen Davis with the Atlanta Apartment Association, and I'm calling in opposition to the proposed BeltLine SSD. As you know, we're facing a pandemic and an affordable housing crisis here in Atlanta, and we must ask ourselves, is now the right time for a new tax and rent increase on our Atlanta residents? We almost must ask ourselves, is now the right time to compound that with a new tree ordinance, a new impact fees, all of which will add to cost for residents. While each proposal may seem small, the small things add up and make Atlanta less attractive for investment, but most importantly, it drives up rents on residents. Many of those residents are legacy residents along the BeltLine who may be displaced because of the new tax increase. Apartment communities are facing financial loss because of the pandemic. And on top of that, a new tax, they will have no choice but to pass the tax along to the residents. Like I said, many of those residents who have faced their own financial hardships and are finding trouble paying rent. The numbers here for you, this will increase rent by 1 to 2%. By 1 to 2% might sound small, when you are on a fixed income, 1% a month is a lot of money and could make you have to make tough choices as to where you're going to spend that money. Owners and managers of mixed-use developments, which, let's be honest, that is what the city wants when it comes to building new apartment developments, are facing a double whammy as their tenants are facing down business because of the pandemic, and also while they're now facing a new proposed tax increase. And that tax will be passed right along to the residents, which will be right along to the citizens of Atlanta who will have to pay for that. And also, lastly, I want to talk about the unequal burden that is being placed on apartments and commercial properties within the city. While, yes, commercial properties and apartments will benefit from this, single-family homes will also benefit from this. All the single-family homes will pay none of the cost burden for that. So we asked for some fixes to that. Thank you for allowing this to happen. Look forward to working with you. Thank you very much.
Yes, this is Jim Martin. I am a 30-year resident of the Berkeley Park neighborhood and chair of Neighborhood Planning Unit D for the past 14 years. I'm calling to comment on the proposed BeltLine Special Services District. This is a terrible time to be implementing a new tax in general, and especially one like this that is going to be used to fund a purely discretionary project that could easily be delayed. We're in the middle of a pandemic, we're in the middle of a recession, and this tax is going to burden local businesses and renters at exactly the wrong time. Also, the structure of this tax is such that it's going to exacerbate the existing problems of inequity around the BeltLine. Businesses will be asked to pay taxes in equal measure that have no access to existing BeltLine infrastructure and that, by virtue of the nature of their business, are not going to benefit from that infrastructure if and when it's ever built. And yet they're going to be paying those taxes in equal measure to businesses that currently have BeltLine trails driving business right to their front doors. We have a mechanism in place to fund the BeltLine, that's the tax allocation district. Over the next decade, it's going to steer more than $500 million in property taxes toward this project. That should be more than enough to complete the existing trail network. In fact, it's about 10 times what ought to be required to complete these trails. If that money were even vaguely used in a responsible way, it's absurd to suggest that this is somehow not enough money and we need to have a new tax in order to pay for this. Also, I think that it is important to consider the fact that we now know, I think pretty clearly because of the finances, that BeltLine rail transit is off the table. If this project is, as it seems to be now, strictly a trail project, why have we not baselined or rebaselined this project in the way that we did with the T-SPLOST and with the Renew Atlanta projects? It's clear to me that the public needs to know exactly what it is that it's paying for and what it can expect from this project. We are currently paying in excess of $10 million a year to maintain an autonomous bureaucracy to oversee this project. And as it seems now to be a trails-only project, I don't see any reason why we would want to incur that much of an expense purely for administrative services for something that could easily be managed within the city departments. Thank you for your time.
Hi, my name is William Callahan, the Westview neighborhood. I'm trying to express my support for finishing the full 22 Atlanta Rail corridor to help Atlanta recover from the created by the COVID pandemic. The Atlanta Beltline creates jobs, productivity, and improved quality of life. We need this to all it was promised. The Beltline is an opportunity for Atlanta to get their beacon for our. I have personally used the BeltLine to broaden my investigation of parts of our city. I understand that the district will inject $8 million into a corridor and will allow for 50 resources tax help to be used for small business support. Affordable housing funds and small business support is important to me because many of my neighbors are citizens. I want to see that they're ready to write property taxes for they keep their business alive. The 50,000 jobs by the project for future residents for the city, the projected $1 billion of development surrounding this. Please vote to approve this service district so we can finish with sincerely, William.
afternoon. My name is Catherine Chestnut, and I live in Inland Park and run a small business in Old Fourth Ward. Both my home and my business are within half a mile of the BeltLine. I support the completion of the BeltLine. I do not feel that the Special Service District proposal reflects the best interest of small businesses or communities along the BeltLine. Firstly, I want to say that this proposal is very poorly timed. Everyone, especially small businesses, are still attempting to recover from the negative impact of the pandemic. It's still passing. If this passes in any form, please do not impose any taxes until late 2022 at the earliest. Give us a chance to recover, please. From previous calls regarding this proposal, SSD supporters indicate that businesses have benefited from being on the BeltLine. If that is true, I would say that homeowners have as well, since property values have increased. I suspect that homeowners were not included in this special tax because it would be a much harder and much more scrutiny from the media and the public at large. Why not spread this cost across all properties, including residential? If the BeltLine in the city is concerned about affordable housing, then taxing commercial rental property is counterintuitive to this effort, since tax increases will be passed on to the renters. If there is a tax, everyone should shoulder this burden. Lessons from the Eastside BeltLine have revealed that without critical city investment in infrastructure, the BeltLine planning areas are unable to attract foot traffic. Is there a budget to show how this money will be used? How will the BeltLine be held accountable? How has the city held the BeltLine accountable in the past for its shortcomings? Are there mechanisms for community oversight? Without proper investment in small businesses, community advocacy, capacity, and pedestrian infrastructure, the local businesses of Old Fourth Ward will not reap the benefits of the growth brought about from the BeltLine. How will this special service district provide a special service to the Old Fourth Ward? As written, the current legislation serves to remove needed resources from our community CID and does not include accountability measures to ensure that BeltLine adequately serves small businesses. How can you vote for this proposal when there are no specifics such as millage rate and property list? Thank you for considering my suggestions. Thank you for listening to my recommendations and from the Old Fourth Ward Business Association, and prioritize the needs of Atlanta's small business community. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Gavin Good. I'm a resident of the Berkeley Park Neighborhood Association on the Upper West Side of Atlanta. I'm generally in favor of the Special Services District and excited to see the funding come through for the BeltLine to complete the trail and the affordable housing initiatives that have been committed to. I would think it would be really good if we could include language in the legislation that would ensure that trail connectivity would be made to this portion of the town where we have yet to see the BeltLine come in. I know it's late in the process and there's a lot of complications, but by some mechanism or another, I think there are ways to make it happen, and would like to see a commitment to that included in the legislation as we tax businesses in this area. Thank you for your time.
Good afternoon, City Council members, and thank you for listening to our messages. My name is Wanda Davila, and I live and run a small business in the Old Fourth Ward. While we support the completion of the Atlanta BeltLine, we do not feel the BeltLine Special Service District proposal reflects the best interests of the small business communities along the BeltLine. Lessons learned from the Eastside BeltLine in the Old Fourth Ward have revealed that without critical city investment in pedestrian infrastructure and amenities, businesses in the BeltLine planning area are unable to attract foot traffic from the BeltLine. Without proper investment in small businesses, community advocacy, capacity, and pedestrian infrastructure, local businesses in the Old Fourth Ward do not reap the benefits of the growth brought about by the BeltLine. As reasoned, the current legislation serves to remove needed resources from our community and does not include accountability measures to ensure the BeltLine adequately
serves the small businesses and neighborhood business district. We urge you to consider the recommendations put forth by the Old Fourth Ward Business Association and prioritize the needs of Atlanta's small business community. I also want to add that I love my businesses, I love my neighbors, and I love my residents, and I don't want to see anything that would really impact our growth. Please consider our needs, specifically as we also are part of this great city. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Danielle Brockington, and I have concerns about the upcoming discussion around the BeltLine Special Service District proposal. My concerns lie in the businesses that were contacted about this, that are purported to have buy-in on this proposal, and the impact on small businesses, especially small Black-owned businesses, especially along the southwest corridor of the BeltLine. As we already see, prices not only for residential housing, but also commercial have skyrocketed along the East Side Trail, which was the first section completed. And those businesses, I dare say, can afford an increase in their property taxes, whereas you have businesses in Southwest Atlanta that are not at all benefiting from being close within a mile or a half mile of the BeltLine and receive no benefits from that foot traffic. But the increase in property taxes is going to be passed along to the business owners who are renting in these buildings often and who are barely trying to hang on as it is. Especially we're in the middle of a pandemic where things are tight and there are so many unknowns. So I just don't know if this is a path that is a suitable or reasonable path for it to, and I'm concerned about what this means for people who live within a half mile of the BeltLine, and what are the implications in the future for something to be levied on those property taxes as well. I just have a lot of concerns, and I would like those to be discussed and elucidated. Thank you. Hello, my name is Danielle Brockington, and
Hi, my name is Stephen Kim, and I'm a resident of Westchester in DeKalb County, Decatur, just off Scott Boulevard. And I'm calling to express my support for finishing the 22-mile BeltLine Trail, and not just to recover from challenges created by the COVID-19 pandemic, but as a growing city which is trying to become a major hub. I am ashamed to say that Atlanta falls way behind other major cities around the world. And with Microsoft coming in right off the BeltLine, young people coming in, I think the BeltLine has the opportunity to become a transportation expressway where people will commute by bicycle. These people are young people, and it will spur development and along the areas that need it, and it will bring vibrancy to the city and save a lot of tax dollars. Let's face it, traffic in Atlanta is terrible, and bringing something like an IT center, a famous IT center in the middle of town, is very new, much newer than these large developments in the suburbs. So I think the Atlanta BeltLine is a key transportation gateway to where people commute, how people get to the station. So I think I would love to be part of it, and I think it will really make Atlanta a special place. That walkability, where the unique thing about Atlanta BeltLine is, unlike driving, we get to connect with the different people, the different diverse neighborhoods, diverse economic situations, and I think it's great for the city. And I really think it's something unique, and I really hope you will
finish the full 22-mile Atlanta BeltLine, and also to include the affordable housing so that not just the rich, not just the privileged can live. Because the main thing about the BeltLine, the most impressive thing is it brings people together from different backgrounds and all the jobs and other economic development that will follow. So I really hope that you pass it, and thank you for taking my call.
Hello, my name is Nathan Hedges with the Allen Morris Company. I represent the ownership of a large multifamily asset in West Midtown at 1050 Powell Mill Road. I am very concerned about the proposed BeltLine SSD. We own a very significant properties within the tax allocation district already and have had significant, have contributed significantly to the TAD. The SSD will increase the cost of taxes on properties in the BeltLine in the northwest section in Area 8, sub-Area 8 of the BeltLine. Those tax increases will impact the cost of housing for all residents in the multifamily housing in the tax area directly as rent increases to offset the increased cost of taxes. Additionally, the SFD will increase the returns and value of high-density townhomes and single-family home development relative to multifamily. That increase in the relative value of high-density townhomes and single-family will decrease the future potential of housing for housing density in the SSD, and therefore will decrease affordability as a whole in the SSD, as it is typically more economical to rent than it is to purchase homes. This will in turn drive gentrification in the SSD and not accomplish the intended goal of what's being done in the BeltLine, which is to help improve affordability and accessibility in the city of Atlanta. So until these concerns are somehow addressed, I think there should be further discussion and consideration of the SSD prior to its enactment. Thank you very much.
Hello, my name is Lucy Bigham, and I'm a 42-year resident of the Virginia Highland neighborhood in the city of Atlanta. I'm calling to express my support for finishing the full 22-mile Atlanta BeltLine Trail corridor. The Atlanta BeltLine has created jobs, spurred economic activity, and improved quality of life, and we need to bring its benefits to all the neighborhoods it was promised to connect. The BeltLine has connected me to parts of the city that were unknown to me before and has enriched my life as I walk on the east side and the west side trails, as well as the interim south side trail. I understand the Special Services District will generate $100 million to help finish the trail corridor and will allow for additional resources from the BeltLine Tax Allocation District to be used for affordable housing and small business support. I bought my house over 40 years ago when it was actually affordable. We need affordability all over the city, along with the jobs and transit that need to go with it. I like that the SSD isn't a regressive sales tax and distributes the tax in a way that the largest commercial and luxury multifamily apartments pay the most. They benefit greatly by being near the BeltLine, and I welcome this opportunity for them to give back. Please vote to approve the Special Services District so we can finally finish the 22-mile corridor and bring its benefits to all 45 BeltLine neighborhoods. Thank you very much for your time. Goodbye.
Hello, my name is Zach Lowell. I live in Candler Park, and I'm calling in regards to the new proposed tax for finishing the BeltLine. It is promising to hear that there is proposed tax to finish the BeltLine. However, I am deeply concerned that it does not include money to expand transit and affordable housing, two of the most nuts and bolts aspects of the BeltLine that have yet to seriously come to fruition. As a lifelong Atlantan, I am deeply concerned that those are being left out. Please continue to support them. Thank you.
Good afternoon, City Council members. My name is Stacy Sachs, and I own a small business in the Old Fourth Ward neighborhood on the BeltLine. In the telephone factory lofts, we do not have frontage space on the BeltLine. The back of our building backs up. And while we support the completion of the Atlanta BeltLine, I do not feel the BeltLine Special Service District proposal reflects the best interest of the small business communities along the BeltLine. Lessons learned from the East Side BeltLine and Old Fourth Ward revealed that without critical city investment in pedestrian infrastructure and amenities, businesses like mine on the BeltLine planning area are unable to attract foot traffic from the BeltLine. Without proper investment in small businesses, community advocacy, capacity, and pedestrian infrastructure, local businesses in Old Fourth Ward like myself will not reap the benefits of the growth brought about by the BeltLine. As written, the current legislation serves to remove needed resources from our community, and it doesn't include accountability measures to ensure the BeltLine adequately serves small businesses and neighborhood business districts. So we urge you to consider the recommendations put forth by the Old Fourth Ward Business Association and prioritize the needs of Atlanta's small business community. We need it now more than ever. Thank you.
All right. I believe that was our final comment. So thank you to the 37 members of the public who reached out with some very thoughtful and insightful questions and comments. Mr. Bronner and Mr. Higgs, I know that you all are both still on the line. I was wondering if you could take a minute to respond to the comments that we've heard just now. And I know that you have both had conversations that are ongoing where we heard from a number of folks in the Old Fourth Ward Business Association. We heard from the Upper West Side CID as two organizations, and then some individual questions from residents around single family inclusion or exclusion, the Northwest certainty, for lack of a better phrase, and ensuring that the BeltLine finally gets delivered in a part of town that has yet to see it yet. And then around transparency, the question of auditing and a potential stakeholder board, and anything else that you want to take a few minutes to reflect on would be great.
Sure. So appreciate that, Councilmember Westmoreland. I'll just opine on a couple of things. I definitely welcome Rob to share his thoughts here. But just by way of background, I just want to give some insight to Atlanta BeltLine Inc. So Atlanta BeltLine Inc. is roughly a 45-person team, and the organization was specifically created to advance the entire Atlanta BeltLine project. We are primarily funded by the tax allocation district, and our organization reports to a 9-member board of directors that meets on a monthly basis. And so we have a chairperson, John Summerholder, the chairman of CDHS for City Council, which is you, Councilmember Westmoreland, sits on our board. We also have an official appointee from Fulton County, Lee Morris, that sits on our board. And we also have a representation from Atlanta Public Schools, Erica Mitchell, who is the official appointee as well. The mayor is ex officio on our board, and then we also have appointees from Invest Atlanta, the community, and also the BeltLine partnership. And so that is the board that we are accountable to on an everyday basis. Again, we meet monthly, and then also from a budget approval perspective, our budget is approved by the Invest Atlanta board of directors as well. And just so a little bit of background, just about our organization and just from an accountability standpoint. And then additionally, we come to CDHS committee also on a regular basis where we share updates about the Atlanta BeltLine project. And so we will give the latest and greatest regarding housing affordability. We'll give the latest and greatest regarding transit, trails, all of our program goals. We'll share updates with members of the CDHS committee for city council. And so that's just a little bit of background on our organization. We have a fully functioning truly exec team. We have a CFO. That CFO works closely with our auditor. So we are audited on an annual basis, and happy to report that we have received 8 straight clean, no finding audits for the BeltLine of the last, again, 8 years. And so that's something that we obviously take very seriously, but just more background about who we are, from an organizational perspective. And so, Rob, you may want to add some additional colors and things that are front of mind for you, and then I'll bring in the rear as well.
Okay, thank you, Clyde, and thank you, council members, for the opportunity to respond here. I mean, I think in listening to the public comments, and certainly we're greatly appreciative of really just having the opportunity for residents to weigh in. I think probably the most consistent thing that I heard, really even from people who were expressing concerns about the SSD as well as those who were clearly in support of it, is that everybody wants the BeltLine Trail corridor to be finished, and recognizes the benefit of bringing the BeltLine to all parts of the city as originally committed to the residents of Atlanta back when the redevelopment plan was approved in 2006. I think both the Upper West Side CID and others in the Northwest, we're happy that their main concern is how do we make sure that we get it right, and certainly I know Clyde and his team and we on the partnership side are committed to making sure that it gets built out, and I'm sure we can work with City Council and continue to work with the stakeholders in the Northwest to make sure that the BeltLine gets done, because we all want the same thing in that regard. And then the voices from the Old Fourth Ward Business Association. I generally heard the desire to be better connected to the BeltLine via infrastructure improvements, sidewalks, et cetera. And one of the benefits around the full BeltLine, and this is an exclusive to Old Fourth Ward area, but as that TAD pie grows, there's additional funding for things like streetscapes, and obviously we need to take into account where different TAD boundaries are that pre-existed before the BeltLine TAD, but I think there's a general commitment to helping businesses thrive. I mean, look, the BeltLine is for the people, it's for the community, and certainly where there are ways to support residents and visitors get into businesses around the BeltLine, we want to do that. Obviously, we certainly believe that the density and the people and the jobs that have been attracted into the core of the city and around the BeltLine have been beneficial to the growth of many businesses around the BeltLine, and we certainly want to continue to bring those people around the full corridor to be patrons of businesses. Certainly heard things around timing, and just to restate what I believe we addressed during the presentation, that even if approved now, the assessment would not be going into effect until much later this year for the property owners, and then again for many of the businesses who have leases with which they might need to pay it, it would likely be about a year from now, in which they see that financial impact. And in the meantime, again, this SSD is a critical piece of a larger funding strategy, that if we really do want to see the BeltLine finished, and the reality is, unfortunately, that the TADs, we're going to run out of time. And if we want to see the BeltLine finish, we need to bring in additional funding sources, and the SSD helps to unlock philanthropic dollars that could come much sooner than when the SSD assessment would be felt by property owners around the BeltLine. And in order to compete for federal and other dollars that would be needed to round this out, having essentially the investment from those who have benefited the most from the BeltLine being built to be investing alongside other investors, whether they be federal or philanthropic, or the city, county, and public schools through the TAD. But if we all want to come together and bring the BeltLine to all communities like originally intended and originally promised, this is what we believe to be the best path forward. But certainly look forward to continuing to work with stakeholders and through the public meetings and with City Council to address concerns and make sure that we can deliver the best BeltLine for all. Thank you.
And also, round off real quick, I'm just reminded as well, just thinking about small business and also an organization that represents a number of African American businesses here in Atlanta, the Atlanta Business League, and reminded of Leona Davenport, the organizational head, and some of the pushes that she has placed in front of us, and just making sure that as we deliver the BeltLine, not only from a build-out perspective, that we are really focusing deeply on our small business community. Because again, when we talk about our job numbers, those jobs are coming from small businesses. And again, the BeltLine, we love it as an amenity, but at the end of the day, we're using this amenity as a way to exact benefits for community. That's from a job creation perspective. Again, tracking over 20,000 permanent jobs along the BeltLine. And also reminded of Ryan Gravel's piece in the AJC as well, and just thinking about the time is now, and the opportunity to deliver. Even though we are talking about this from a trail perspective, this feeds a number of our program goals on the housing affordability side, the transit side, the job side, and so the time is now. And then also, Rob talked a little bit about timing and the accrual not really taking effect perhaps until 2022. But the opportunity for us to get certain funds this year, perhaps from other funding buckets, is significant. So even though we wouldn't start collecting dollars from the SSD until next calendar year, there's an opportunity for funding from other buckets in the capital stack of the SSD or the BeltLine completion to realize and come to fruition perhaps as early as this summer. I appreciate all of those responses from both of you. Thank you. Colleagues, any other questions or comments? I know we have a few folks who are still on the line. I want to give you a chance to share anything that may be on your mind.
I'm good. This is Shepard. I'm okay.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, Ms. Shepard. All right. In that case, I will remind folks about the 5 remaining community meetings. The next one is this evening at 6 p.m. There is more information on the BeltLine's website around tonight and in the future. Next week is a committee week for council. I do not anticipate any discussion of these items at those committee meetings, but I do expect discussion and potential action in the following committee meetings, which would be March 9th and 10th, respectively. So be aware of that potential timeline. Thank you to the two of you for your participation today, and to everybody else. We're going to take a little bit of a breather, and then we'll be back as CDHS committee tomorrow at 10 a.m. to talk about trees. So everybody get excited. Thank you both, and have a good afternoon, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.